Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Oh boy. Friday Halloween.
Friday Halloween. We're going to be at the indoor water parks,
Oh
and I'm
yeah,
sure
that's
it's going to
right.
be crazy.
That's right. I'm helping Carson's classroom party and I volunteered for crafts, which I don't know why I do these things. It always seems like such a good idea. And then last year, my problem is I'm just extra. Like I have accepted that
Yeah.
in life. Last year I did the Christmas party and we did the snowmen.
That was really cute.
It
That you
was
would.
super cute, but it also was me for hours right after my tummy tuck, standing and sanding all of those
Yeah.
fence posts that I had to use and then painting them all white. Um, I'm gonna see if I can figure something out. I've seen these really cute, like, mason jars that you
Hmm.
can put stuff inside that make them glow, and then they have, like, a, pumpkin or a ghost or something like that on them, but I don't wanna send the kids with glass home.
Mm.
So I'm trying to figure out if I can do it with plastic. So,
Yeah. I don't know. All I know is that our school has 2 half days into no school Friday because it's parent teacher conference week.
same.
And I was like, awesome.
That's next week for us.
Yeah. So we have, my mother in law is out of the country and it will just be us. So it's like, who's taking the afternoon off? I have my
Yep.
calendar blocked right now, just trying to pre plan. But that in turn is then resulting in I had to cancel doing some of the like volunteering at the school because I'm like, I just can't take that
Yeah.
much time. So, anyways, I'm excited. It'll be a nice little getaway. We always go up to like the Dells and we love this resort and there's like a good workout center. There's a lot of different water parks. And so there'll be a ton of stuff going on. So it'll be nice to get up there and enjoy the weekend with the boys. And then we are leaving Monday for our trip. So it'll be
Mhm.
wild times. But if you guys are trick or treating, be safe. Remember that you should probably pick and choose maybe some of the candy and be cautious.
Yep. Yep.
Every year we're like, you only get like 5 or 10 things. We need to separate this all out. And like, I'm, verifying like, is this unopened? Has it
I
been
know.
punctured or
I
something
know.
weird?
I'm kinda crazy with that stuff too, and luckily, like, Taylor doesn't really like a lot of different types of candy. She doesn't like the nerd clusters, she doesn't like sour things, she'll really only eat, like, some Reese's, Snickers, and maybe Starburst.
Yeah.
Carson will eat whatever. So, like, I will be taking you can have 1 or 2 pieces on Halloween, and then we will put the rest away and probably be doing it for the next year.
That's what a lot of people, yeah, I think
Yeah.
too.
Like, it's just
So, oh man, it's so interesting. I was chatting with some friends yesterday that, from a Christian perspective, do you celebrate in terms of like allow your kids to trick or treat? Like I was not allowed as a child to trick or treat. We
mhm.
do allow trick or treating, obviously, but everything that we do is like more fall decorations and we
Yeah.
talk about, things. So it's interesting and no judgment or whatever. Either way, I think everybody's so different. But we were just saying, like, I think it's important, even if you're not doing that, to like still make it fun, for
Yeah.
them. Cause I was like, if you don't trick or treat, you don't allow your kids to trick or treat, why do you hand out candy? And they were like, you should ask my husband that, because I'm like, then you're still participating. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because like if we're home, we love and we will miss doing this. We love going with our neighbors because there's so many kids in our neighborhood around Marcus's age. And then we end up at somebody's house after and it's so fun. But
Mhm.
anyways, all right, enough about that. We are going to talk about burnout today, and this will probably ring a lot of bells with you. Maybe give you a little bit of gut punch sometimes. I know I shared on my stories, just a comparison of 2 Dutch tests showing metabolized cortisol totally tanked, and then, what we're looking at in terms of reasons behind that and other considerations besides just saying that cortisol is low. And so when we think about cortisol is very anti-inflammatory, right? This is produced by your adrenals. It's your stress response hormone and it's designed to keep us alive. All right, if you're dealing with water retention, you're waking up puffy, your ankles or your wrists are really swollen, or you can't get your rings off, and maybe you're even dragging throughout the day, no matter how much water you drink, there's actually a good chance that you're not actually hydrating properly.
Exactly, because water alone is not enough. You need electrolytes, you need sodium, potassium, magnesium, because those things actually pull water into your cells. Otherwise, you're basically just flushing it out and wondering why you're still tired, you're still bloated, and you're still sluggish.
But here's the thing, most electrolyte supplements out there aren't helping you in any way because a lot of them contain things like natural flavors, food dyes, and maltodextrin, which can irritate your gut. And these things can also spike your blood sugar when you're trying to heal.
That's why we both started using Buoy. It's super simple, just trace minerals and electrolytes in liquid form. No flavors, no colors, no sugar, no sweeteners, and you squeeze it into whatever you are drinking. Water, coffee, tea, smoothies, you name it.
And it's clinically backed by science too. So studies have shown that buoy helps you hydrate better, 64% better in fact, and that's data coming from key blood and urinary markers, not just marketing fluff. And honestly, you can feel the difference. I've had many clients tell me their digestion's improved, they have less headaches, and they're better energy throughout the day.
And buoy isn't just for people that go to the gym all the time and sweat a bunch. They actually offer a 35% lifetime discount for anyone that's struggling with chronic illnesses. Things like POTS, Hashimoto's, Crohn's disease, chronic migraines, and every autoimmune condition. They're really committed to making better hydration accessible to people who need it most.
I actually throw it in my coffee every morning because it's such an easy upgrade. You don't even taste it, but you're definitely gonna notice if you miss it.
If you're tired of playing hydration roulette and want something that actually supports your body, you've got to try buoy. It's honestly one of the simplest ways to feel better faster.
Right? Think fight or flight. Somebody's cutting you off. This happened to us on Sunday, leaving the game. Somebody like almost, he ran a red light or whatever. And I was like, okay, we could have just had a T-bone situation there. So it like freaked me out because you're slamming on the brakes. You're like, is everybody okay? That's your cortisol response, your adrenaline, like that's your body's reacting to keep you safe. Flee the situation, right? But chronic stress really keeps the brain stress center, our amygdala and the HPA axis firing nonstop. And this could be stressors that you may or may not even realize. So it's not going to always be that life-threatening situation, but it could be internal stressors where you haven't had enough sleep, you have underlying infections, right? You have lingering antibodies from previous infections, you have a stressful relationship, you have a stressful job, you don't take your work email off your phone and you're constantly checking that, right? And so again, the first response is that cortisol is here to help keep you going, but over time, your body can't sustain it. And so cortisol tanks, your circadian rhythm starts to bottom out and your energy suffers. This is one thing I've been chatting a lot about with some of my clients is if you're not sleeping, you're not recovering. You can't expect to have good energy during the day, a good cortisol awakening response during the day. If you're waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and not being able to fall back asleep, you're getting like 5-6 hours of sleep, right? So we've got to also look at other things that could be contributing factors to this. And again, this is not something that is weak. This is your internal physiology, right?
Yeah.
Because it's really here to help your body protect yourself, right? So you don't want to stay in overdrive. At some point, you got to calm things down. And I think there's so many other things that in a cascade, because this is a big thing that we talk about. It's not just low cortisol or just high cortisol. It's the whole picture of all 11 systems of the body and the cascade and the impact that this has. And so the big question is, why is cortisol so elevated, prolonged? And then how are we addressing that? And then the other piece, the other side of that coin, right, would be if it's suppressed, why is the body unable to produce when we look at like metabolized cortisol? And again, it's going to be more than just one lab that we're looking at.
Absolutely. Something else that starts to happen when you are in this like chronic fight or flight, chronic stress state is that histamine levels start to rise. So it's kind of part of your whole alert chemistry that happens, and your body activates mast cells. We've talked about mast cell activation syndrome before on the podcast. You can go and listen to those. Essentially, this can be like a next level histamine response where immune cells that store and release histamine essentially become triggered. And so histamine is basically a signaling molecule that increases vigilance and blood flow. Like it's your body doing what it should be doing. And it helps you respond to perceived danger. It boosts adrenaline and it boosts cortisol activity and it keeps you this alert and reactiveness, which is why people with histamine issues don't sleep. They wake up all the time because histamine is actually a very high alert response molecule. And so if the stress is constant, then these mast cells stay overactive, continuously releasing histamine. And that can lead to inflammation, that can lead to anxiety, insomnia, and that like wired and tired feeling that a lot of people end up with. And so in essence, this stress chemistry and histamine become very intertwined, and both are designed for survival, but harmful when constantly on. And they will rise inflammation. Histamine will drive anxiety. It will drive insomnia, like I mentioned. People get heart palpitations a lot of times with histamine issues, feeling wired and tired, like I mentioned. So the more stressed you are, the more inflamed you become. And this is what a lot of people don't realize, not just from histamine too, but from blood sugars, because blood sugars essentially will start to be constantly elevated when cortisol is constantly elevated. It's a very direct relationship between cortisol and blood sugar. Whenever cortisol goes up, your body thinks, "Hey, I need to shuttle blood sugar into the bloodstream to keep you moving," because it thinks alert physical stressor, when in reality it might be a very mental stressor of you sitting at your desk and you just open an email of the "we need to talk," right? Everyone that gets that text message or that email of like, "Hey, we need to talk," or "Hey, this is going on," right? That is that your blood sugar goes up, inflammation rises because of that. So this relationship happens. We see histamine intolerance all the time with our clients. And it's this load that starts to happen to where your body just can't break it down and detoxify it fast enough. And so it just starts to accumulate.
Yeah, and a big piece with chronic stress when we think about vitamins and minerals and the body's ability to build some of these enzymatic, functions that it needs, like DAO enzymes or selenium, iodine, zinc, magnesium, like we really get burned out because when you're in this chronic state of stress, you're burning through things like zinc, vitamin C, magnesium, right? And so this in turn is also going to start to play a role with your thyroid and the down regulation of your metabolism because essentially you're starving for nutrients. So we'll start to see on labs individuals where their conversion from inactive to active thyroid hormone to put the gas pedal for the metabolism starts to slow down, and we're seeing reverse T3 increase. So remember that your T4 is your pro hormone. It's your inactive thyroid hormone that gets converted to T3. We need different things to build this. Iodine is very important to build T4, but then we need to be able to convert that. And we do a lot of that conversion in the liver, in the tissues, in the gut. And if we don't, use that, then, or if we don't convert it well, we're going to see reverse T3, which is unusable T3. It's just kind of offloaded and that increases. So our cells are not accessing energy. Free T3 is what is circulating in the blood to be used and available when needed. And so that we always want to see like a 3.3 or above. Selenium is really important here as well. And so when we see this, we know that there's some level of chronic stress that's happening. And again, when we think about some of those other symptoms Becca was mentioning in terms of like the allergies or histamines and things, mold is a really big one here too. Mold and mycotoxins. We're all exposed to mold and mycotoxins, but not everybody develops mold illness. And this again is going to be that chronic ongoing picture. When the immune system is no longer able to handle these things, right? You start to lose your defenses. And so you can't just like willpower your way out of burnout because your body is conserving. It is in that conservation mode. And so a big piece here as well is going to be energy overall, mitochondrial energy, right? Mitochondria really get bombarded with oxidative stress. And this starts to give us this kind of vision of exhaustion cellularly. We're not producing this ATP. That's going to be like the lights on in your cells that you need. And so, you start to get that battery that is just like really drained. And again, this is your body's mechanism and way to compensate you and to protect you so that you can finally repair. And this is where we kind of go into the season of surrendering. And I can think of so many clients. Andrea, particularly, is one of mine that comes to mind. We saw this through and through. I remember she started with us and she had no clue that she was bottomed out cortisol, bottomed out hormones. Her thyroid was also low functioning and Hashimoto's in terms of her antibodies were presenting. And so it's again coming back to the question here, what has been driving this chronic stress? And we actually identified a lot, obviously, in various tests that we did for her, but her total tox burden was really a turning point for us and getting into some deep state of autophagy, supporting her mitochondria and the cell. So you don't get well unless you heal the cell. And part of that sometimes requires you slowing down and surrendering in this season to the go, go, go mentality that I think many of us live with.
Yeah. And hopefully you can now see and understand like the true physical effects that stress will start to cause on the body. Because I think a lot of people want to go into these you know, healing processes or programs or work with functional medicine people and they're like, tell me what supplements to take, tell me what protocol to follow, tell me what diet to follow. And it might not be enough. Like you may need to have that very different view of how you're looking at the healing process. It can be potentially shifting your entire mindset, your thought processes, like leaning into faith of what could become versus trying to constantly control every aspect of your life. And with that comes some identity loss. Like people that work with us typically got to where they are because they ignored signs and symptoms and kind of pushed through because for like perfect example, I'll use myself an example. When I was struggling I was always the fit trainer, right? Like I was coaching CrossFit classes. I was always super muscular. I was always really fit. And then my body got really inflamed. I got swollen. I was gaining weight and I couldn't control it. And it's like you start to lose that identity of I'm not that person anymore. What are people going to think of me? What are they going to, they're going to think that I gave up on myself. They're going to think that I'm not trying hard anymore when I was trying harder than I ever had. And then when I had to lean into, I walked away from CrossFit. I walked away from the thing that, you know, got me to a really fit physique, but also then got me much deeper in dysfunction and illness and symptoms and all of these things I was struggling with. I had to be like, I no longer can let my body do that because it doesn't tolerate it at this point. And it was hard. Like, a lot of people that I knew, a lot of people that followed me, a lot of people that I talked to, like, that was what I was good at. And so it was kind of this, like, I don't do that anymore. I don't do cardio. I don't do I go to the gym and I lift on machines and I do, leg presses and leg extensions and all of these things that it was a big identity shift for me. It was a big, like, I'm not the person that pushes my body to its limit day in and day out every day anymore. Um, and so that was hard. And it was kind of like losing a little piece of myself that it's always a part of me. It's always like a piece of my history. But for other people, they are the person that is in their business and working 12, 13 hours a day and not going to bed at a proper time, maybe waking up too early to try to fit in the gym. Like, having to be the person now that takes a step back it's a lot. When your body says no more, it feels like you kind of lose that identity of my body used to keep up with me. It used to go to battle for me and it's still going to battle for you. It's just telling you very clearly it can't handle this battle anymore. Like, you need to give it something. You need to give it some room to breathe and to recover and to repair. So if you built your worth on being productive and capable and the person that holds it all together and like you can't do that anymore, it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to work through, but it typically requires it.
And I think I would just remind everybody this is a season, like you've gone through a season of really high stress. And even though you want to wear all those hats and you want to wear that badge of, I got it all done today, you can't do that when your body is literally shutting down, because again, we all know that point where you just get so exhausted you can't keep your eyes open. Some people have even said, like, I'm falling asleep in, work, or I'm falling asleep on my way home from work. And like, that's a really dangerous place to be. And so just really reminding yourself that this is a season. There's a reason for a season, and I will get back there. I will get back to a place that I can go and train in a way that is supportive of longevity, right? So when we think about really intense workouts, long term, we know we can see it, right? People's bodies start to break down. Their knees go out, they start tearing things, they get injured, right? So really shifting into more of a place of building muscle that's going to help you maintain good balance, right? We know after certain ages, if you are falling, you have a higher risk of death, especially if you break your hip, things like that. And so it's shifting from that I can do it all and be an all yes person to I'm going to do the things that really serve me and let it be. Like, let it be okay that you are not going to be just burning yourself to the ground every single day. I always tell people, like, we are not designed to do it all the time. That's why God created us to have a partner in life, right? Our husbands, our spouse. That's why God gave us friends and family to lean into, especially in times of high stress or trials and tribulations when you're going through things. And again, that could be a variety of things. It doesn't even have to be physical, but it could be that emotional space. And so lean into that and just remember that it's a season. So when you're in that season, I know a lot of people are like, well, I'm going to lose all of my muscle and things are just going to break down and I'm going to lose all my hard work. And I think if you actually look at the research, just remembering that you can maintain your muscle mass. Again, this is not something we would say is going to be like months and months and months and months on end that you're not doing anything. You're not just becoming a vegetable laying on the couch, right? But we do know that you're going to see better results if you are supporting your body in a way that it needs because you're going to recover faster and then you're going to be able to come back stronger. So remember that cortisol and inflammatory cytokines, they inhibit this mTOR pathway. Okay. So that's the key pathway for growth. So this is really important when we are growing humans, when we're growing organs, we're developing as children. We need sufficient calories. We need amino acids. It's best, especially leucine. We like, those aminos that you can add in as well. If you don't get enough of these, you need recovery time. When mTOR stays suppressed, you start breaking down your protein, and that equals, you know, protein building, you're not doing it as much. And so instead of your workouts being anabolic, which is building you up, putting on muscle mass, they start to become catabolic. So you start to lose muscle mass, you're degrading your muscle. And so what can you do in this season? Number one, slow down, still move your body. You can do things like walking, you can do yoga, you can do mobility and stretching, maybe some body weight movements, but walking is really powerful because it's low intensity. That's more parasympathetic. To me, it's very de-stressing. I find a lot of benefit from my walks in nature more so than I would other things. If you guys listen to the podcast, you've heard us talk about that. And so it can really help regulate your cortisol instead of spiking it, but it can at the same time improve lymphatic flow, your mitochondrial function, insulin sensitivity, muscle activation without pushing adrenaline or cortisol really high, keeps your slow twitch muscle fibers active, which are oxidative energy efficient, helping maintain that muscle tone and metabolism even when you're in this recovery phase. And it supports muscle preservation because it's improving nutrient delivery from improving your blood flow, right? And circulation. And then again, all of this is going to lower inflammation that drives the muscle degrading catabolism. So
Yeah.
that, and then I would just say, depending upon how severe you are, I would still stimulate your muscle as long as you keep yourself in check and you don't then go hard too fast, right? Stimulate your muscle and just maybe lift it like a 60 to 80%
Yeah.
and do it 2 to 3 days a week instead of doing it 7 days a week.
Yeah. And I think, especially for our clients that listen and maybe have gone through some fasting protocols or some keto protocols, because we do utilize those strategically to help kick someone into autophagy and cellular cleanup, and especially if they need it. During that time, you might feel flat because guess what? When you aren't eating a ton of carbs or when you are fasting and potentially lower calorie, your body just stores less water. It does not mean that you are losing muscle. You might actually be maintaining or gaining muscle during that time because your body's becoming more metabolically healthy and your mitochondria are becoming more essentially efficient. And so a lot of people worry because they maybe feel weaker. Strength and muscle mass are different things to an extent. Like you can have and maintain a good amount of muscle mass, but not be fueled to lift as heavy as you've always been able to lift because you're not eating carbs because you're trying to go through a fasting protocol right now. Like that's very different. And you have to stay focused on what the goal is at hand in that moment. When you are in a healing protocol, the goal is healing. The goal is not, I'm going to lift as heavy as I've always lifted. You might need to put that on the back burner so that in the future we can do that again. You can get even stronger and healthier and maintain the health during that versus having it just deteriorate the health again. And so this is something we hear a lot from people, especially people that have that history of training and feeling strong and, feeling fit and all of those things. You can maintain your muscle very well walking. And when we are in those really intensive protocols, that might mean you just do walking and that's okay. And it's something that we talk to our mentors a lot about too. Like our mentor Vince, I talk to him all the time. I'm like, so what does training look like when you're doing this type of protocol with someone? He's like, why do they need to train? Why can't you just walk them? And it's just the reminder of like, yes, walking can stimulate muscle just as much. And sometimes you need that mental break. Sometimes the body needs that break to truly be able to do the task at hand. And then on top of that, when this nervous system and hormone system are under stress, prioritize sleep. You need to be getting that 7 to 9 hours of sleep. You need to be eating adequate protein, potentially stabilizing blood sugar, shift to that lower impact movement like Liz was talking about, mobility, yoga, Pilates even. Adding back intensity gradually once sleep and energy and cycle stability and your essentially resiliency is back where we need it to be. Because exercise, fasting, calorie deficits, all of these things are tools, but under stress, they stop being medicine and they start being poison to the body and they start being chronic stress to the body because your physiology can only adapt to so much for so long. So if you are in that burnout stage or you are in that place where you are trying to surrender, just remember it is a stage, it is a phase, but the longer you fight it, the longer you're going to be in it.